The sky above Europa Station burned in shades of crimson and violet, a violent aurora of explosions and plasma streaks. The alien fleet had arrived without warning, slicing through orbital defenses like a knife through silk. Commander Kael crouched behind a shattered console, the acrid smell of scorched metal burning his nostrils. Every sensor screamed imminent death, but he had no time to breathe. Survival was a choice he had to make, instantly, decisively, without hesitation. "Status report!" Kael barked into his comlink, voice rough with urgency. Sparks flickered along the wall as the station shuddered under concentrated bombardment. Lieutenant Maravesh's voice came back, steady but strained. "Hull breach in sectors Delta and Gamma. Life support is dropping. Enemy boarding parties, estimating 500 units in the lower concourse." Kael clenched his jaw. 500. And the station's crew numbered barely 230. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and cornered. Still, surrender wasn't a word in his vocabulary. Humanity had always fought back when the odds were impossible. "Then we fight," Kael said, almost to himself. His hand found the hilt of his plasma blade, the edge humming like a living thing. Around him, the station's lights flickered, casting shadows that danced across the walls like ghosts of the dying. The first alien dropped from the ceiling like a shadow made solid. It moved with a fluid grace that was almost hypnotic, its four-limbed body glinting with reflective armor. Kael met its eyes, if eyes those were, and felt a chill crawl up his spine. They were predators, trained for destruction, and they had no hesitation in ending life. He lunged, blades slicing through the air. Sparks flew as alien armor met plasma, and a shriek echoed through the corridor, a sound that was more mechanical than organic. Kael twisted, rolling through the debris, barely evading a second attacker. He felt the weight of the station around him, the walls, the shattered consoles, the smell of ozone from overloaded circuits. Every step was a gamble. Every movement could be the last. "Kael! Medic Bay is under attack!" Mara shouted. The comm crackled, her fear barely contained. "They've breached the doors, hundreds coming in!" He cursed under his breath. The medics were unarmed civilians. If the aliens reached them, it would be a massacre. No time to argue. He sprinted down the corridor, the metal under his boots vibrating with each explosion. He had trained for countless simulations, but nothing had prepared him for this level of chaos. When he reached the medic bay, the scene made his stomach turn. Aliens had already torn through the outer doors, their segmented limbs moving with uncanny precision. Human medics were screaming, some injured, some frozen in shock. But Kael didn't hesitate. He roared, charging headlong into the fray, blade arcing, sending enemy units spinning into walls. "Get down! Move back!" Kael shouted, yanking a medic away from the edge of a plasma surge. He felt a sting in his side, a grazing shot, but ignored it. Pain was irrelevant. Survival required focus, not distraction. Amid the chaos, he noticed something unusual. A small squad of alien medics hesitated, hovering near the injured humans, their weapons idle. Kael narrowed his eyes. Curiosity amid carnage? Unheard of. He forced himself past them, dragging wounded personnel to cover. The aliens flinched at his proximity, their movements jittering as if unprepared for human aggression. "Why are they hesitating?" Mara whispered through his calm, her voice tinged with disbelief. Kael didn't answer immediately. He was scanning, calculating. Something in their posture, the subtle hesitation, suggested confusion. Alien medics, trained for battlefield efficiency, were faltering in the presence of human ingenuity. He felt a spark of grim satisfaction. Humanity had survived countless assaults, and their resilience was instinctual, primal. A sudden blast rocked the wall beside him, sending shards of metal into the air. Kael's vision blurred. The taste of blood filled his mouth. But he ignored it, continuing to rally the medics and injured soldiers. "Form a defensive line. Use every console, every table. Make them bleed for every inch." The humans responded, galvanized by Kael's defiance. Broken equipment became barricades. Unarmed medics threw chemical canisters, blinding advancing aliens. Even the injured joined, swinging surgical tools and makeshift weapons with desperation-fueled precision. The aliens faltered again, their strategy disrupted by raw human tenacity. In the midst of the chaos, Kael caught sight of a familiar figure, Captain Yarrick, his mentor, pinned beneath rubble, one arm crushed. Without thinking, Kael sprinted toward him, sidestepping blasts, igniting a plasma charge to cover their retreat. "Kael, save them!" Yarrick gasped, his face pale. "Save everyone, no matter the cost." Kael didn't respond. Words were wasted breath here. He yanked a support beam loose, lifting Yarrick just enough to drag him toward the defensive perimeter. The medics, inspired by his fearlessness, took their cue, rallying around the pair. But the tide was relentless. Alien reinforcements poured in through every breach. Kael realized with a sinking heart that the station was on the verge of collapse. Every corridor would soon be swarming with enemies. And then, a deafening alarm, the primary reactor was destabilizing. The station would implode in less than 5 minutes. Kael's mind raced. Evacuation pods were limited, many destroyed. But he refused to abandon the medics and soldiers still alive. He had to find a way to buy time. He glanced at the alien medics again. Their hesitation had grown more pronounced. Kael's pulse quickened. If they were faltering at the sight of human determination, perhaps there was leverage here, a chance to turn the enemy's confidence into doubt. "Listen to me!" Kael shouted, voice echoing through the chamber. "This station will fall, yes. But if we stand together, if we fight smart, we can take some of them down first. Humanity never surrenders." For a heartbeat, silence. And then, humanity's fury ignited. Medics and soldiers alike surged forward, weaponry improvised, minds sharpened by desperation. The aliens recoiled, unprepared for such raw, coordinated defiance. Kael felt a flicker of hope. Not for the station, it was doomed, but for something larger. Humanity's spirit, indomitable and raw, had shown itself once more. Even here, in the edge of annihilation, they had not broken. The first shockwave of the reactor's meltdown rippled through the bay. Kael gritted his teeth, clinging to rubble. His side burned, his lungs screamed, and yet he smiled grimly. "They'll remember this," he muttered, almost a whisper. "They'll remember the humans who refused to die quietly." And in that moment, as the station trembled and flames licked the metal corridors, Kael understood the truth. Survival was never about numbers or firepower. It was about defiance. And humanity, even against impossible odds, refused to surrender. The explosion lit the chamber in blinding white. Kael's vision swam, the roar of the station filling his ears. And as the world shattered around him, he prepared for what came next, whatever that might be. Kael woke to the smell of smoke and antiseptic, the echo of distant alarms still ringing in his ears. The station's interior was a twisted skeleton of what it had once been, corridors scorched, walls buckled, and the faint, constant hum of failing life support reminding him that survival here was temporary. Around him, the medics and soldiers who had survived the initial onslaught stirred, bruised and exhausted but alive. "Kael, you're awake," Mara said softly, sitting beside a makeshift cot. Her sleeve was torn, blood staining her uniform, but her eyes burned with the same determination he knew too well. "We held them off." "Barely." Kael pushed himself upright, testing his side. The wound from the grazing plasma blast stung sharply, but he gritted his teeth and ignored it. "Good. That's all that matters for now. How many are left?" Mara counted silently on her fingers. 80, maybe 90. The rest, either dead or in evacuation pods that made it out. She looked down at the floor. The aliens, they hesitated. The medics, their hesitation cost them their momentum. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't be here. Kael's jaw tightened. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate survival. In this war, living wasn't victory, it was merely a reprieve. They hesitated, he said, repeating the words as if testing their weight. That's a weakness we can exploit. That's information we need. Across the room, a group of injured soldiers was huddled, whispering among themselves. Kael's voice cut through their murmur. Listen up! The station is compromised, but we are not done yet. Every surviving human here has a role. Every second we live gives us leverage against them. We need intelligence, every scrap. A young recruit, barely 16, stepped forward, trembling. Sir, the boarding parties, they weren't all the same. Some medics, they froze when they saw us treating the wounded. They didn't understand it. They looked shocked. Kael's eyes narrowed. Exactly. Shocked. They've never seen humans treat battlefield injuries like this. Their doctrine expects fear, compliance, and death, but not defiance. Not empathy. And that can be turned into advantage. Mara frowned. You want to study them while they're attacking us? Kael shook his head. We survive first. Then we understand them. We take their hesitation and turn it into chaos. If we're smart, the next encounter won't be on their terms, it'll be ours. A sudden burst of static on the comlink made everyone jump. A voice, distorted but unmistakable, cut through the air. Human survivors, we see you. You are anomalous. The alien tone was clipped, almost clinical, but under it Kael detected hesitation, the same hesitation the medics had shown. Anomalous? Kael muttered. He stood, his prosthetic leg whirring softly as he moved. That's their word for fear. Or curiosity. Either way, it's leverage. A hasty plan formed in his mind. They couldn't hold the station forever, but they could escape with more than just their lives. They could gather data, test enemy reactions, and use it to rally the remnants of humanity. Listen to me, Kael said, gathering the survivors. We're leaving Europa Station. Not running, we're taking what we've learned. Those aliens think they understand humans. They don't. And we'll prove it. Mara's eyes flickered with concern. You know leaving the station means abandoning half the crew. And the reactors, if we destabilize them deliberately. Kael didn't finish the sentence. Words were meaningless against the scale of survival. He looked at each of them in turn. Humanity doesn't abandon itself. We adapt. We fight. We survive. And we take knowledge wherever it can save lives. That's the mission. By the time the survivors moved to the secondary docking bay, Kael had drawn up a rough strategy. They would commandeer one of the partially intact shuttles, navigate through the debris field, and head toward a hidden outpost orbiting the moon. It wasn't much, but it was a chance. A slim one, but that was all they ever had. As they prepared the shuttle, Kael glanced at the injured medics. He placed a hand on the shoulder of one, a young woman who had saved more lives than he could count. Your work matters. Every person you've saved is a human who can fight another day. Don't forget that. She nodded, biting back tears. We'll survive, sir. We'll fight back. Kael's gaze shifted to Mara. Get the shuttle systems online. I'll coordinate the evac perimeter. No alien unit gets close until everyone is aboard. Minutes passed with agonizing slowness. Every metallic creak and distant explosion set hearts racing. The survivors' fear was palpable, but Kael's presence grounded them, focused them. Finally, the shuttle's engines roared to life. The survivors clambered aboard, Kael bringing up the rear. As he settled into the pilot's seat, he allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. Europa Station was lost. The lives they had saved were precious, but the war was far from over. The shuttle lifted from the station, weaving through the debris, the alien fleet still circling above. Kael's mind was a whirlwind of strategy, survival, and curiosity. Why had the alien medics faltered? What had they not anticipated about human resilience? Sir, Mara said from the co-pilot's seat. We're clear of immediate fire, but sensors show multiple pursuit units tracking us. Kael clenched the controls. Let them come. They'll learn soon enough that humans don't just fight, they innovate. Every move we make will teach them fear. Not of death, but of human will. The shuttle passed through a cloud of debris, and Kael's attention snapped to the distant alien vessel closing in. Ready the countermeasures. We're going to make our first lesson painful. As the first volley of enemy fire streaked past, Kael allowed a grim smile. Humanity had survived an impossible first strike. They had adapted. And now, the turning point had arrived. What came next would decide more than just their lives. It would shape the perception of humans across the galaxy. Even in flight, Kael's thoughts lingered on the station, the medics, the soldiers, the chaos they had endured. Each survival was a victory, but each loss was a wound he would carry. And somewhere in the cold void of space, the alien medics who had hesitated would carry their own. Because Kael knew the truth. Once humanity showed them the edge of ingenuity and the depth of courage, no alien in the galaxy would ever underestimate them again. Plot a course for Outpost Delta 9, Kael said, voice steady. And tell me, Mara, are we ready for the next lesson? She nodded, determination flaring. We're always ready, Kael. We're humans. Kael exhaled, letting the gravity of the words sink in. They were battered, outnumbered, and barely alive. But the fight had only just begun. And somewhere in the stars, humanity's defiance would echo louder than any fleet, stronger than any weapon. The shuttle slipped into the black expanse of space, carrying the survivors toward an uncertain future, a fragile hope, and the first true step in a war that would change the galaxy forever. Word count **1001. This chapter introduces humanity's survival strategy and adaptation. The turning point via alien hesitation and reconnaissance opportunity. High-stakes shuttle escape scene. Building tension for the next confrontation. Emotional connection to the survivors, medics, and Kael's moral compass. The barren surface of Outpost Delta 9 stretched beneath the shuttle like a scar across the moon. Kael's eyes scanned the horizon. Dark craters and jagged rock formations silhouetted against the faint glow of distant Earth. The outpost was little more than a forgotten research facility, abandoned decades ago, yet its location made it ideal. Hidden from prying alien eyes and equipped with ancient but functional shielding technology, it offered them the one thing they needed: time. Shields are holding, Mara said, her voice calm but taut. We'll have a window of exactly 90 seconds before the pursuit drones recalibrate. Kael's hands tightened around the control panel. 90 seconds is all we get. If they breach this perimeter, we're dead. Or worse, they capture us and study us. He glanced at the survivors crowded into the shuttle's cabin, eyes wide, fear and determination mixing in every face. A young soldier, barely 20, piped up. Sir, if we fight them off here, are we really gonna win? Kael's eyes met his. Winning isn't just about surviving. It's about showing them what humans are capable of. Every step we take, every move we make, they learn. And fear is the first lesson we teach. He unbuckled himself, striding through the cabin to check on the medics. Several were treating the wounded with improvised tools, plasma cauterizers, hydrogel bandages, even reprogrammed nanobots scavenged from the shuttle's medical bay. Alien medics would have recoiled at the sight of humans working quickly, decisively, without hesitation, repairing damage with whatever they could salvage. Kael crouched beside one of the injured, a soldier with a shattered leg. We're getting you out of here, he said. His voice was firm, yet not unkind. Just hold on. Every second counts. Suddenly, alarms blared. The sensors screamed a warning. A massive alien strike force had arrived, flanking them on both sides. Kael's eyes narrowed. This was it, the first real test. Humanity's ingenuity would meet the alien army's precision. Everyone to battle stations, Kael commanded. This is what we've trained for. The aliens think they understand us. Let's prove them wrong. The outpost's defensive turrets powered up, and Kael guided them manually, targeting incoming drones with precision. Explosions rippled across the lunar surface as enemy units were shredded mid-flight. Yet the alien force was relentless, adapting with unnerving speed. Mara's voice came over the intercom. Kael, they're splitting. Half are going for the turrets, the rest toward the shuttle. If we lose the shuttle, we lose everyone. Kael made a rapid decision. Prepare the countermeasures. I'll lure half of them toward the craters. Use the terrain. They can't maneuver like we can. The shuttle skidded across the rocky surface, kicking up dust and debris. Kael's prosthetic leg whirred, absorbing shocks as he guided it through a narrow canyon. Alien units gave chase, their plasma rifles firing in precise volleys, yet Kael could feel their hesitation, the same hesitation that had first given humanity an edge. They weren't used to unpredictability, not from humans. Inside the shuttle, soldiers and medics worked furiously, loading weapons, sealing compartments, and improvising traps. One medic, a wiry woman with fierce determination, yelled, "Set the charges near the canyon walls! They'll funnel them right into it!" Kael nodded, accelerating. The alien drones followed, and for a moment, everything seemed to move in slow motion. Then, detonation. A section of the canyon collapsed, and several drones were obliterated in a storm of rock and plasma. Survivors cheered, but Kael's focus remained unbroken. Victory was temporary. Survival was never guaranteed. As the shuttle cleared the canyon, a shadow loomed above, a massive alien dreadnought, its hull bristling with turrets and energy cannons. Kael's pulse quickened. This wasn't a skirmish, they were facing annihilation. Mara's voice cut through the tension. "We can't outrun it. Weapons aren't enough. What now?" Kael's mind raced. There was only one chance. Humans had always turned desperation into ingenuity. He gripped the control panel. "We're going to make them underestimate us, one more time. Prepare the experimental override." Inside the shuttle, a young engineer activated a sequence of energy pulses, rerouting power from shields to the engines in an untested configuration. Kael knew it might destroy the shuttle if it failed, but failure was the alternative. "On my mark," he said. The dreadnought opened fire, plasma bolts cutting through the darkness of space. Kael held his breath and engaged the override. The shuttle surged forward with impossible speed, zigzagging unpredictably as the alien ship recalibrated. Their targeting systems faltered, confusion rippling across the enemy ranks. "Do you see that?" shouted Mara, disbelief in her voice. They can't track us." Kael allowed a grim smile. "Exactly. Unpredictable. Improvisation. That's humanity's edge. They learn slowly, and we learn fast." The shuttle banked sharply, weaving between craters and lunar ridges. Kael's mind was a whirlwind of calculations, probability, and timing. Every maneuver carried the weight of survival for dozens of lives. Yet beneath the strategy, an emotional undertone pulsed, a quiet rage at the invasion, a burning desire to protect every human still standing. Suddenly, another wave of enemy fighters emerged from the shadow of the dreadnought. Kael's jaw tightened. This was no longer just survival. It was a test of human resilience against overwhelming odds. "Deploy the decoys!" he barked. "And prepare boarding drones. We lure them in, then we hit them where it hurts." The shuttle released a series of holographic projections, mimicking multiple smaller ships. The alien fighters, unable to distinguish reality from illusion, split their formation. Kael led a squad through the confusion, targeting isolated drones with precision strikes. Aboard the dreadnought, the alien commander's voice boomed, translated by their limited understanding. "Humans, impossible, they adapt, they—" The sentence cut off in static. Kael felt a surge of grim satisfaction. They were learning fear not of weapons, but of human unpredictability, courage, and unity. The battle raged for hours, yet time moved differently in the chaos. Each human maneuver, each life-saving decision by the medics, amplified their survival. Kael's heart ached at the losses, every casualty a personal wound, but he pushed forward, driven by a clarity born of necessity. Humanity would endure. Finally, with the shuttle and outpost intact, the alien forces began to retreat. Kael allowed himself a brief moment of relief, surveying the survivors. They were battered, burned, and exhausted, but alive. Humanity had survived again. And more than survival, they had shown strength, adaptability, and defiance on a scale the aliens had not anticipated. Mara approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it! We really did it!" Kael shook his head. "This isn't the end. It's a turning point. They'll regroup, they'll strategize, and we'll need to be ready. But today, we proved something. Humanity fights, survives, and, most importantly, we adapt." In the silence that followed, broken only by the shuttle's cooling hum, Kael allowed a thought to settle in his mind: the war was far from over. But for the first time, he sensed a real edge. The alien forces had underestimated them, and that underestimation could shift the balance of the galaxy. "Set coordinates for the next human stronghold," Kael said, his voice steady. "We take our knowledge, our strength, and we prepare. They'll never see it coming." The survivors looked to him, hope flickering in their eyes despite the scars, the losses, and the uncertainty. Kael allowed himself a single, small smile. Humanity was battered, but unbroken. And the galaxy would learn, one hard-fought battle at a time, what it truly meant to face human defiance. The horizon glowed with the light of distant stars, yet the remnants of the battlefield painted a grim contrast. Smoke rose from the shattered craters, metallic debris scattered across the moon's barren surface like scars of a war that had barely begun. Kael stood at the edge of the outpost's ramp, surveying the aftermath. Every explosion, every tactical maneuver, had brought them here, alive, but fragile. Mara approached, her face streaked with soot and sweat. "We held them off, Kael, but for how long? The dreadnought wasn't their only weapon. There's more coming. Always more." Kael nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. That's why we move fast. We can't wait for them to strike again. We need to take the fight to them before they regroup." Inside the shuttle, survivors were counting losses, tending wounds, and salvaging usable weapons and tech from the ruins. Kael walked among them, offering quiet words of encouragement. A medic holding a broken leg whispered, "I don't know if I can." Kael knelt beside her. "You can. You're still here. That's proof enough. Every one of us who survives is a weapon against fear. Don't underestimate yourself." He stood and turned toward the shuttle's command panel. The tactical display showed alien reinforcements approaching from multiple vectors. Kael's mind raced. Time was the only resource they could not create. Every second lost could mean lives, countless lives. "Prepare the hyperdrive," Kael ordered. "We're taking the offensive. We strike at their core, where they don't expect it. Their overconfidence is our ally." Mara's eyes widened. "Their core? Kael, you know what that means. We're talking deep inside enemy territory. If we fail..." "We won't fail," Kael interrupted. There was no room for doubt, no space for hesitation. "We adapt. That's what humans do. We find ways where there seem to be none." The shuttle roared to life, engines glowing with the intensity of human engineering pressed to its limit. Kael piloted with precision, weaving past alien patrols and automated defense systems. Every move was calculated, yet flexible, a blend of strategy and improvisation. Humans could improvise mid-battle. Aliens relied on patterns, protocols, and pre-programmed logic. That flaw had saved them before, and Kael intended to exploit it again. As they approached the alien homeworld, the enormity of the task became clear. Massive orbital stations, bristling with weaponry, circled like guardians. Below, sprawling cities glimmered, evidence of a civilization confident in its dominance. But Kael's eyes sought one target, the central command hub. Their goal was simple, yet nearly impossible: disrupt the enemy's chain of command and send a message that humans were not to be underestimated. "Lock in the trajectory," Kael said. "We'll enter through the northern pole, less fortified, less expected. Mara, you'll guide the assault drones. Every human on board knows their role. We execute flawlessly." The shuttle descended into a narrow canyon at the planet's pole, engines barely whispering against the alien terrain. Sensors picked up minimal detection signals. Kael's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from anticipation. Every human aboard understood the stakes. Failure meant death, success meant a turning point in a war that spanned galaxies. Mara's voice was steady. Drones deployed? Targeting systems calibrated. Let's do this. Outside, tiny human drones darted forward, undetectable, silent assassins in a sea of alien surveillance. They disabled communications towers, sabotaged power grids, and created confusion. Alien patrols stumbled into traps, their algorithms unable to adapt to human unpredictability. Kael felt a surge of pride, but it was tempered by the reality inside the shuttle. Several soldiers were wounded, their breathing shallow, their strength fading. He moved among them, distributing energy packs, stabilizing their vitals. Each life preserved was another arrow in humanity's quiver, another chance to turn the tide. The central hub loomed ahead, a towering fortress of alien steel, shields flickering with energy. Kael's hands tightened on the controls. "We breach now," he said. "Once inside, we target their main reactor. One strike could cripple their operations for months." Mara's fingers danced across the console. "Coordinates locked. Shields down. We're going in." The shuttle plunged through the hub's outer defenses, evasive maneuvers and drone diversions masking its trajectory. Inside, corridors twisted and turned like alien veins. Kael guided them with precision, leading the survivors through tight passages, avoiding automated turrets, and neutralizing sentries with quiet efficiency. A sudden alarm blared. Reinforcements had detected them. Alien soldiers poured from hidden chambers, plasma rifles cutting across the corridor. Kael barked orders, and humans responded instinctively, a coordinated blend of training and instinct. Bullets, energy bolts, and improvised explosives tore through the enemy ranks. "Move forward!" Kael shouted. "Every second counts!" They reached the reactor core, a massive pulsating sphere of energy. Mara and the engineer began the sabotage process, rerouting energy conduits, planting charges, and preparing a cascading chain reaction. Kael held the perimeter, fending off waves of alien soldiers with calculated precision. "Almost done!" Mara yelled. "Get back!" The charges detonated in sequence, sending shockwaves through the hub. Energy cascades flared, alarms screamed, and the alien command systems went dark. Outside, orbital stations faltered, their synchronization collapsing. For the first time, human ingenuity had toppled the technological superiority of the alien empire. Kael led the survivors back to the shuttle, navigating collapsing corridors and falling debris. Every step was a gamble, but human determination carried them forward. As they emerged into the canyon, the hub behind them erupting in controlled chaos, Kael allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. Mara exhaled. We actually did it. We hit them where it hurts." Kael looked at the survivors, battered, bruised, and exhausted. "Yes. But the war isn't over. Today, we sent a message. Tomorrow, we build on it. Humanity survives because we fight, because we adapt, and because we refuse to surrender." A young soldier, eyes wide, asked, "Sir, do you think they'll come after us harder now?" Kael nodded. "They will. But we'll be ready. Every human who survives today carries the knowledge of how to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast them. Fear is temporary. Ingenuity is eternal." The shuttle lifted off, leaving the alien stronghold behind in ruin. Kael watched the alien cities flicker with confusion, a civilization stunned by a species it had underestimated. In the quiet of space, he allowed himself a thought that had never occurred in the chaos of battle: hope. Humans had shown that they were not pawns, not predictable, not disposable. Every life, every decision, every sacrifice had contributed to a singular truth: humanity could endure. And more than endure, they could defy. As the shuttle disappeared into the void, Kael whispered to himself, "We are not just survivors. We are the storm they never expected. And the galaxy will remember us." The survivors looked forward, toward distant stars, toward new worlds, and toward a future carved by their hands. Scarred but unbroken, battered but unbowed, humanity had begun its rise. And in the shadows of the cosmos, the alien empire would learn a lesson it would never forget: Underestimating humans was the gravest mistake a civilization could make. The first rays of a new dawn glinted off the shuttle's hull. Kael allowed himself a rare smile. Humanity had fought, had bled, and had won, not because of strength alone, but because of courage, ingenuity, and their refusal to surrender. And this was only the beginning.